Hey guys, I'm Valiant. If you want to catch me live, I stream on Twitch and sometimes TikTok. Today we're going to be talking about the injured Earthen Bulwark build. I saw this build and I was really excited to try it. Shout out to Dr. Slug. I'll also have a link to his video in the description below. I've only played this build for a couple hours now. I was able to clear a dungeon 40 plus levels above me, and I'm only level 74. This is a really strong build. It's very, very tanky, and it does a ton of damage. For our abilities, we are going to be taking Poison Creeper. This CCs everything around us, causes everything to be poisoned, which increases our damage, and it increases our critical strike chance by 20%. Our next ability is going to be Hurricane. Hurricane does a lot of things for all druid builds. It helps us stack our armor. All enemies are slowed by 25%, and enemies affected deal 20% less damage. It also helps with the AoE damage as well. And the main source of damage from this build is going to be Earthen Bulwark. Rocks surround you for 9 seconds, granting a barrier that absorbs 63% of your base life. It makes you unstoppable for 6 seconds. We use Shrapnel, so every time the Bulwark is destroyed or expires, we deal AoE damage to everything surrounding us. And we use Petrify as our ultimate. This stuns all surrounding enemies. You deal 30% increased critical strike damage to enemies. Against bosses, the critical strike damage bonus is increased by 50%, and its duration is increased to 7 seconds. So we're basically just using a lot of different types of AoE, and everything's going to be blowing up on the screen. For basic, we are going to be using Claw. Claw's attack speed is increased by 15%, and Claw has a 15% chance to attack twice. And then we also use Cyclone Armor, and this is mainly for the passive, which gives us more damage reduction, but you could also use it as a knockback as well. We are going to be using one unique. It is not required, but it really makes the build shine. It's a great Staff of the Crone. And for our gear, we're going to be using the Mending Stone aspect for our helm. This increases Earthen Bulwark, the duration, by 6 seconds, which isn't needed, but it's nice to have. It makes it a lot safer to play. And the stats that we prioritize would be basic attack speed. This helps with resetting all our cooldowns. And then barrier generation. We're going to be looking for this on multiple pieces of gear. Total armor, we're going to want to get our armor as high as possible. And lastly, cooldown reduction. This is mainly for our ultimate. It does help with everything else as well. For our armor, we're going to be using Might aspect. Basic skills grant 20% damage reduction. And then we're going to be looking for all defensive stats. Damage reduction from close, damage reduction from poison enemies, and finally the most important, percent total armor. For our gloves, we are looking for the rapid aspect. This gives us up to 30% increased attack speed. The faster we attack, the faster we reset our cooldowns. The stats we are going to be looking for would be attack speed, critical strike chance, critical strike damage with earth skills. And for the fourth, I would suggest lucky hit or willpower. For our pants, the aspect we are going to be using is Disobedience. We're going to be looking for all defensive stats again. The main stat would be damage reduction while injured. You're going to want this as high as possible. This is what the whole build works around. You should be going for at least 75% damage reduction while injured, up to almost 85%. And then we're going to be looking for total armor again. And then damage reduction, either from close, fortified, poison, any form that you can find. And for our boots, the aspect we are going to be using is Ghostwalker. It increases your movement speed up to 25% while unstoppable, and you're always pretty much going to be unstoppable. The stats we are looking for would be damage reduction while injured again. You can see here from these two pieces alone, I hit 86%. Next, you're going to be looking for movement speed, dodge chance, armor while in werewolf, and spirit all work. And finally, the Great Staff of Crone. This makes the whole build work with a unique aspect on this item, because when we basic attack, we're using a storm skill, we're casting Storm Strike, we're applying vulnerability, and then in turn we're proccing our symbiotic aspect, which reduces our cooldowns. You don't need the Great Staff of Crone, but it's going to slow the build down if you don't have one. It does damage to close, damage to crowd control, non-physical damage, and plus 9 ranks of claw. And then the gems we are going to be taking in our weapon are going to be emeralds for critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies, and then diamonds and all the armor for barrier generation. And for our rings, we are going to be looking for the balance and crash stone aspects. Stat priority would be vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, barrier generation. This is really important. And then either lucky hit or maximum life. For our amulet, we are going to be using the symbiotic aspect. When Nature's Fury key passive triggers a free skill, your non-ultimate cooldowns of the opposite type are reduced by 8 seconds. This is going to help us use our ultimate, Petrify, a lot more often and do a lot more damage and increase our clear speed. It is important that you put this aspect on the amulet. Unlike the other aspects, this one is not interchangeable. Stat priority would be +3 to Envenom. This increases your damage because everything's going to be poisoned by a poison creeper or from your claw because you are going to be in werewolf form. And then movement speed. total armor and werewolf, any damage reduction you can pick up. Cooldown reduction works as well. If you ever need to heal, don't use your potions unless it's in a dire situation. We're going to be using the Skinwalker aspect, which will heal you for shapeshifting, and this would be the best way to keep your life below the 35% mark for all the bonus damage reduction. For our Malignant Hearts, we are going to need an orange socket and a purple socket. The last socket could be anything for the Wrathful Heart. For the Malignant Hearts, we are going to be using the Tempting Fate Heart. This increases your critical strike damage, and the debuff to our non-critical strikes isn't that important. I'll get into that later on. Just like all other builds, we are going to be looking for the Caged Heart of Revenge for the 10 to 20% damage reduction. It's just too powerful to leave out of any build. The AoE damage is a bonus, but not necessary at all. And then finally, for a Wrathful Heart, we are going to be using the Barber Heart. The longer the duration, the better. And obviously, you're going to be looking for the highest percent increase to damage as well. How this build works is we're just going to attack everything, and then we're going to set off a chain reaction of explosions with the Barber Heart. And this is why the Tempting Fate Heart debuff to our non-critical strikes doesn't really affect the build, because the Barber proc will always crit. For our Spirit Boons, we are going to be taking Wariness. You take 10% reduced damage from elites. And then next, we are going to be taking Spooping Attacks. You gain 10% increased attack speed. Normally, I would say you could take the other two boons in this tree, but in this build, I would not recommend it. And this is because the faster we attack, the more likely we are going to proc our cooldown resets from Pack Leader, our key passive, and our aspects as well. And we're going to be taking Bolster. You fortify for 15% of your maximum life when you use a defensive skill. This is going to keep our Fortify topped off, because in this build, Earthen Bulwark is spammable. Our reset procs are going to keep this active at all times. So obviously next we are taking Pack Leader. Critical strikes have up to 20% chance to reset the cooldowns of all your companion skills. This makes it so Poison Creeper is spammable. And for our last pin, we are taking Calm Before the Storm. Nature magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skill by 2 seconds. This is why I suggest Lucky Hit. It's not required, but it helps. Also, the fact that everything we do is AoE helps as well. And then if you're going to be doing the non-injured version of this build, you could be taking Masochist. But in this build, we don't want it because we want to sit below 35% life for the extra damage reduction. For our basic skills, we're going to be putting 1 point in Claw, Enhanced Claw, and Wild Claw. 1 point to Storm Strike, Enhanced Storm Strike, and Fierce Storm Strike. And for our core skills, we are going to be putting 3 points into Predatory Instinct. And then we're going to be putting 2 points into Digitigrade Gate. For our defensive skills, we're going to be putting 5 points into Earthen Bulwark. This increases the amount of barrier you receive. 1 point in Enhanced and Innate Earthen Bulwark. And again, this is the main source of damage of this build. Next, we are going to be putting 1 point of Cyclone Armor, Enhanced and Preserving Cyclone Armor. And this is mainly for the passive effect. 1 point in Ancestral Fortitude and 3 points into Vigilance. And then in our companion skills, we are going to be putting 1 point of Poison Creeper, Enhanced Poison Creeper, and Brittle Poison Creeper for the added 20% critical strike chance. For our Wrath skills, we are going to be taking Hurricane, Enhanced Hurricane, and Savage Hurricane. We are going to be putting 3 points into Crushing Earth and 3 points into Stone Guard. 1 point in Neurotoxin, poison will now slow enemies. And then 1 point in Toxic Claws. This is for another form to spread poison to increase our damage. And finally, 3 points into Envenom. You gain 30% increased critical strike damage against poison enemies. And then with the +3 from our amulet, this is going to go to 60%. For our ultimate skills, we are going to be putting 1 point into Petrify and 1 point into Prime Petrify. We don't put a point in Supreme Petrify because we don't have resource issues with this build, and we're not going to need the extra 25 spirit. Next, we put 3 points into Defiance, 3 points into Natural Disaster, and 3 points into Resonance, 1 point into Quick Shift, and 3 points into Heightened Senses for extra damage reduction. For our key passive, we are going to be taking Nature's Fury. Casting an Earth skill has a 30% chance to trigger a free Storm skill, and it does the same if you cast a Storm skill as well. This is a huge source of damage. This is the bread and butter of the build, because whenever we do damage with Earth, we have a chance to apply more damage with Storm, and vice versa. Sometimes you will have procs of everything going at once. Next, we're going to show some gameplay footage before the Paragon Board. I was trying to do a Nightmare Dungeon 40 levels above me without dying, but I didn't have the Skinwalker aspect, so I couldn't really heal, and then it kind of turned into me just seeing if I could do the dungeon with no life at all. Came close. I did end up dying one time, but it was fairly easy. I hope you enjoy. And for our Paragon board, we're going to be going up and to the right for the extra damage. We're going to be taking the rare node Prime. Our first glyph is going to be Exploit, 1 point to Impel, and then our next board is going to be Inner Beast. We are not going to be taking the legendary node. The glyph's going to be Shapeshifter. Shapeshifting has a 20% chance to cause the skill's damage to critically strike, and this is to buff the rare nodes within range as well, which is going to give us a lot of extra armor. And the next board is going to be Heightened Malice. First we go to the glyph, and the glyph's going to be Earth and Sky. Nature magic skills deal 10% increased damage to crowd controlled or vulnerable enemies. Going to increase all the magic nodes in the surrounding area. We're going to make our way over to Poison Condition for more armor, and then up to the legendary node, which gives us 45% increased damage if we have 3 or more poison enemies near us. And the only way you are not going to have this active is if you don't have 3 enemies near you, because we will be applying poisons multiple ways. As you can tell, I only have 3 glyphs right now, and this build is still really strong. So I want you guys to keep in mind, I did this dungeon 40 levels higher than me with only 3 glyphs, and they weren't even leveled up. I think 2 of them were at 15. This build has insane potential. I'm going to finish leveling up with it. I'll have the full build planner for the Paragon board and the gear linked down below in the video description. If you guys have any questions or feedback, I will reply in the comments down below. Again, shout out to Dr. Slug. Appreciate you guys for watching. I hope everybody has a good day. See you guys next time.